Hello, Marlies.
Hi.
Hi, Anab and John.
Hello. Um, would you like to introduce yourself?
Absolutely. So my name is Marlies Wirth. I'm the curator for digital culture and head of the design collection at Museum of Applied Arts in Vienna in Austria. I'm a trained art historian, but I came to work with different fields and topics, also technology, artificial intelligence, climate change, and designers and architects through my work at the MAC.
The exhibition that you co-curated called Climate Care. Could you tell us a little bit about how that happened, like what the exhibition was about?
Absolutely. So the exhibition Climate Care, Reimagining Shared Planetary Futures, as we agreed to call it in the subtitle, which I think is still very beautiful, wanted to take a closer look at what we can do to care for our planet and how we could look at our relationship with the planet differently. So instead of only showing projects that tackle climate change by technology or by ingenious design solutions, we also wanted to take an emotional approach because we think that's super important, and to look at the term of care and what that means, that notion. And we then came to be with our brilliant co-curators to realize that we need a more than human perspective. And that's something that came very much from also you and Superflux, to stop the human exceptionalism and not think that we can now have a solution for everything that we made go rogue in the past or still do. But rather look at projects that can convey this kind of new relationship to the planet.
I wanted to, obviously, we are here to talk about a project that you commissioned us at Superflux to do. So could you perhaps tell us a little bit about why you chose to commission us?
Absolutely. So as you mentioned, the Vienna Biennale has been about the topic of climate care and consisted of different shows, also in different institutions throughout Vienna, but with the main hub being at the MAC Vienna and at our large exhibition hall with this big exhibition, Climate Care. And there's a central hall beneath our glass ceiling. The MAC was built in 1864, so it's a quite wonderful structure. And in this central hall, we decided to have a single standing project, a commission that we especially did for the Vienna Biennale, where we invited you, Superflux, to do that. And also with the intention to move a little bit away from the diverse topics in climate care that were very, layered. And there was a lot of text also, and a lot of information, which is valid and solid, but still we wanted also to create a space that can help visitors to engage with their emotions from what they now learned about the modern human relationship to maybe make them experience that also physically and with all senses, basically. And so the idea was to commission a project that can really do that. And looking at your work that we knew from what you did before and in the past, we thought that would be the right fit. And that's how it came upon inviting you.
On that topic, if you could talk to some of the challenges from your point of view of commissioning Invocation for Hope and having the installation in the gallery space.
I really have to say, when I first talked to our then director, Christoph Thun-Hohenstein, about this idea, he was like, what? A live forest? How can we do that? Oh, it's burnt. The installation consisted of a lot of living materials, albeit that the trees that were the main characters in this installation were already burned in a wildfire, in an actual wildfire, close to Vienna, actually near my birth town, in the forest that's a monocultural forest. And so, of course, there were challenges also internal in the house to approach our conservation department, who were worried about bugs or pests that could come in to the museum, which is obviously a danger to our historic objects. So this needed to be clarified. Then, obviously, when working with living matter, as you first and foremost to know, you have to provide an environment that is keeping them alive. So the museum is normally a place for rather dead things, historic objects that have to be conserved there. But to cater to living organisms, we had to also look into special lighting that we had to install additionally, because we humans might think that a large glass ceiling provides enough light for us, for our eyes. but not for the plants. So they need special UV light. So we had to seek cooperation to make that possible. For a museum to do such a large scale installation is only possible with the support of diverse cooperation partners and sponsors, as also the Creatures Fund that you already had on board proved, or also even the help of the fire department to procure the trees out of the forest in sustainable means. So we didn't want to challenge this ecosystem. So we needed to look at all these points and coordinate all that.
And along the way of the process, it was quite an intense process. We had a lot of meetings. We were in a pandemic. What was it like to perhaps bring a whole team on board to something that nobody had kind of quite done before? You obviously had a clearer vision than most of the people in your team. And how did you carry that with you through a very challenging period?
Yeah, so the pandemic was quite challenging because normally we would sit around the table and meet up more often, and you can always articulate your passion about a project more if you meet someone in person. But so we had these long-lasting Zoom meetings that we all are now used to, and still managed to get our team on board, because I really have to say, as a curator, if you can get your team to believe that it is so important and it is your absolute dream and passion to put this to life for the designers, for our audience, for our museum. I think our team worked really, really hard and well for it. At first, they were obviously wondering what is going on in their heads. But yeah, they are always excited to take on new challenges. And we made that happen. And also, obviously, with the help of your team, because otherwise that would have been an undoable challenge. And yeah, also we showed them the vision. I mean, also with your illustrations. And I remember the first little model that you had made out of tiny living material. So that also showed the passion and also that notion of care. So we could convey that is so important for our visitors to experience such an installation, because we can't just think they will read a bunch of texts and will engage emotionally without such an installation.
You mentioned the visitors briefly. I was wondering if you could give us some insights into how you felt it went across in the actual in the show, how visitors related to it.
Yeah, it was always my favorite part of the day when we were doing rounds to check on all the exhibitions, to enter the space, not only because I personally loved the atmosphere there with the soundscape also and being with nature within my own workplace actually, but also seeing the visitors turning the corner from the more conventional exhibition climate care into the space, and the surprised faces and then the smiles it put on them, not daring to step onto it at first, but our guards were also briefed to invite them to go inside the installation. And yeah, I encountered many curious visitors who were really taking photos, videos, selfies, obviously, with the whole family. For kids, it was also a great experience. And I have to say, with living material, it was really beautiful to see how some of the plants changed over the time. So we had blooming bushes for a while in June because there were white blooms, or we had little red berries grow suddenly on a plant. To see visitors really also tell the others about it. So I encountered a woman once that called a family, you have to come to the mark and see that, you won't believe it. So it was really quite exciting also for us.
As you were talking about your passion as a curator, we want to spend a little bit of time talking about that. What keeps you going? What drives you as a curator? What does it mean for you to be a curator today in today's world?
Oh, that's a tough question. But first and foremost, I think the way my brain works is I always have to do new things and explore new things, because otherwise I couldn't do it.
Yeah.
I'm very curious, obviously. And also I chose the path of being a contemporary curator rather than a historic researcher, because I want to work with the living creatives, with the living artists, designers and architects. And also I want to explore the topics that surround us currently. I'm not saying that topics that deal with something that happened in the past are irrelevant. I'm not at all saying that. But for me, it seems more interesting for my practice to look at the world around us and then see how we can use the exhibition as a medium to look through the lens of artists and designers and architects' eyes onto problems or onto topics, and trying to convey that kind of passion that I always had even before I studied for like going to exhibitions. The passion is also to try and make people go to exhibitions more. So I also think if you deal with current topics, and we see that a lot, obviously a lot of our visitors come to see our heroes of the past and our beautiful historic collection, but a lot of the younger generation always wants to see the discourse and the objects and projects surrounding topics that they actually deal with themselves and our world is dealing with. And climate care and climate change obviously is one of those.
This idea of sharing diverse topics, contemporary topics, what are the things on your mind right now that you want to bring out into the world with other artists and designers?
There's a lot, but I think we will keep going on certain topics that have been established and that are still topics that concern the world. My department specialized basically in a different kind of broader notion of design, or like a more holistic approach, dealing with how design can change our way to live, our way to work, to look at things, our society, inequalities maybe. And obviously not only products that are produced, but also installations such as you do, and projects that are more speculative and that help you think outside.
I mean, I have a question that I get often asked, so I'm going to ask it to you. Last question. So if you had absolutely no limits, and what was the dream? Is there a dream curatorial project?
This is a very hard question. I'm so used to thinking in limits, but I think one important topic to state here is actually that project budgets should allow to pay artists fair fees. So that's something that's a dream of mine, to have budgets, no matter if it's a small exhibition or a large project, that allow for us to give fair fees. So we are working on that. We are doing that, hopefully. And I think what we did with Invocation for Hope was kind of a dream project, because I always wanted to do something that's in a way immersive, but like not technologically, but that really brings the exhibition hall to life in a very different way. And I think we did achieve that. So
yeah. Wow, thank you. Yeah, no, I also thought the idea of, I don't know what you think about artists' fees, is such an important point, because we think that it's arts and culture, so we also don't expect there to be fees quite often, or less fees, and this is something that especially emerging artists struggle with and designers struggle with a lot.
It's good that you're leading the way with that.
Definitely, really.
I think it's a culture-wide phenomenon.
It is, and it's changing now worldwide, and also again through the pandemic we saw, I mean, if we call someone an essential worker, we all know what we mean by that, but still everyone's work is valid and essential for society. I think there's a mindset change already ongoing, and I think it's still an important topic, because art is work. That's the slogan that I stand by.
Wonderful. That's the slogan we should end this conversation on. Brilliant. Thank you so much for joining us.
And for your support.
Thank you for having me.